The sleek diplomatic ship touched down at the International Alien Relations Center in Geneva, its golden hull reflecting the morning sunlight. Inside, Lyra adjusted her environmental suit's settings one final time. After 3 months of space travel, she still couldn't believe she had been chosen as Sunscape's representative to Earth. Lyra stood before the mirror, checking her suit's seals. Her tall, slender frame was typical of her species, with skin that shimmered like desert sand and large, amber eyes adapted to harsh sunlight. The copper-colored scales along her arms and neck helped her people regulate temperature on their scorching homeworld. But here on Earth, with its vast oceans and humid air, she needed the suit's careful calibration. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss, releasing a wave of Earth's atmosphere into the cabin. Lyra's sensors immediately reported the shocking moisture content. More water hung in this air than her people would use in a week. Her hearts beat faster as she took her first steps onto Earth's soil. A small group of human officials waited at the bottom of the ramp. Their leader, a woman named Rose, stepped forward with a warm smile. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Lyra. We hope your journey was comfortable." Lyra bowed slightly, mimicking the greeting she had studied. "Thank you for this honor. My people are eager to learn from Earth's agricultural achievements." She was proud that her translator conveyed the formal tones properly. As Rose led her toward the building, Lyra couldn't help but stare at the grass beneath her feet. On Sunscape, such casual use of water for decorative plants would be unthinkable. Every drop was precious, carefully collected from the deep underground aquifers, and recycled countless times. Inside the center, Lyra noticed small fountains decorating the corners of the lobby. The sight of water flowing freely made her scales tingle with ancestral anxiety. Her people had evolved from creatures that could survive months without water, storing it in specialized organs and using it with incredible efficiency. "Your quarters have been adjusted to match Sunscape's atmospheric conditions," Rose explained as they walked. "Though I should mention that the view overlooks Lake Geneva. We can adjust the windows if the sight of so much water makes you uncomfortable." Lyra straightened her shoulders. She was a diplomat, trained to handle new experiences. "That won't be necessary. Part of my mission is to understand how humans have built their civilization around such abundant water. My people once thought planets like Earth would be impossible to inhabit precisely because of this abundance." Rose's eyes crinkled with interest. "Really? We had the opposite concern about Sunscape. Many of our scientists wondered how an advanced civilization could develop with so little surface water." They reached Lyra's quarters, and Rose activated the door. The room was perfectly heated to match Sunscape's daytime temperature, and the humidity was properly minimal. But the wall-sized window showed a view that made Lyra freeze in place. The lake stretched out before her, its surface glittering under the sun. Its size rivaled some of Sunscape's largest cities. To think that it was filled with pure, untreated water. It challenged everything she had grown up believing about resource management. "Is everything all right?" Rose asked, noticing her reaction. Lyra gathered herself. "Yes, thank you. It's just, on my world, seeing this much water in one place would mean either a horrible underground aquifer breach, or—" She paused, searching for the right words, "or you were hallucinating from sun sickness." Rose laughed softly. "Well, I hope that during your stay, we can show you that water can be more than just a precious resource. It can also be beautiful, fun, and even help bring people together." Lyra nodded, though she couldn't quite grasp what Rose meant by fun in relation to water. As she began unpacking her instruments and research materials, she wondered what other surprises this water-rich world had in store for her. Her mission was to study Earth's agriculture, but she was beginning to suspect she would learn far more than she had expected about how differently life could evolve across the galaxy. Looking out at the lake again, Lyra whispered a prayer to her ancestors, asking for their guidance in understanding this strange new world where water fell freely from the sky and gathered in enormous pools just for people to look at. Whatever came next, she knew this assignment would change her forever. 2 weeks into her stay on Earth, Lyra found herself aboard a small aircraft heading toward the Pacific coast. Rose had arranged for her to visit one of Earth's most successful coastal farming communities, where they combined traditional agriculture with something called aquaculture. The aircraft descended, and Lyra's grip tightened on her seat as she saw nothing but blue stretching to the horizon. Her environmental suit's sensors kept reporting impossible numbers. The moisture levels in the air were higher than anything in Sunscape's recorded history. "We'll be landing at Ocean Vista Farm in a few minutes," the pilot announced. "It's a beautiful day for a tour." The farm came into view, and Lyra leaned closer to the window. Neat rows of green crops stretched inland, but what caught her attention were the strange floating structures extending into the ocean. They looked like giant boxes made of mesh, gently bobbing in the waves. As they landed, Rose was waiting with a man who introduced himself as Mike, the farm's manager. His skin was darkened by the sun, and his clothes showed signs of salt damage, things Lyra could understand from her desert world. "Welcome to Ocean Vista," Mike said warmly. "We're excited to show you how we've integrated land and sea farming. It's quite different from traditional agriculture." They started the tour in the land section, which Lyra found comfortingly familiar. The irrigation systems were wasteful by Sunscape standards, but she understood their purpose. It was when they reached the shore that things became truly alien to her. "These are our seaweed and shellfish cultivation areas," Mike explained, pointing to the floating structures she had seen from above. "We can produce more protein per square meter here than any land-based system." Lyra was taking notes when a splash made her jump. She turned to see several humans in strange, tight-fitting clothes walking right into the water. Her translator must have glitched because surely she wasn't seeing what she thought she was seeing. "Is something wrong?" Rose asked, noticing her distress. "Those humans," Lyra said, her voice shaking slightly. They're walking into the water. Voluntarily. Are they not afraid of dissolving?" Mike looked confused for a moment before understanding dawned on his face. "Ah, those are our kelp farmers checking the underwater lines. And no, humans don't dissolve in water. We're actually quite good at swimming." Swimming. Lyra's translator offered no helpful context for the word. Just then, one of the humans disappeared completely under the water. Lyra's scales stood on end, and she took an involuntary step back. They went under. "Quick, you must send a rescue team." Rose placed a gentle hand on Lyra's arm. "It's okay. They're wearing diving gear. Humans can stay underwater for hours with the right equipment." Lyra's secondary heart started beating, something that only happened in times of extreme stress. Hours, underwater. But how do they breathe? How do they see? How does the pressure not crush them? Mike smiled and pulled out a tablet, showing her diagrams of diving equipment. "We have special gear that lets us breathe underwater. Our eyes can see through water with simple protective covers, and our bodies are actually quite good at handling water pressure within limits." Lyra stared at the diagrams, then at the water where more humans were now moving about beneath the surface. On her world, the few lakes they had were purely for water extraction and purification. The idea of willingly submerging oneself. "Would you like to see them up closer?" Rose offered. "We can walk out onto the observation pier. It's completely dry and stable." Lyra wanted to refuse, but she was here to learn. Fighting against her instincts, she followed Rose onto the pier. The wooden structure extended over the water, and through gaps in the boards, she could see the blue depths below. A human head popped up from the water nearby, and the person waved cheerfully at them. Lyra waved back stiffly, her mind racing with questions. How had humans evolved such capabilities? What other surprises did this water-rich world hold? And most importantly, how was she going to explain this to her people back home? Looking out at the humans moving confidently through what her species considered a dangerous substance, Lyra realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. These humans weren't just surviving on a water world. They had mastered it in ways her people had never imagined possible. The next morning, Lyra couldn't stop thinking about the humans who had gone underwater. She had barely slept, her mind filled with images of people willingly submerging themselves in the ocean. After sending a brief update to her homeworld, she asked Rose to arrange a meeting with one of the divers. That's how she found herself sitting across from Tom, a marine biologist who worked at Ocean Vista's research station. He had kind eyes and a relaxed smile that somehow put her at ease despite her lingering shock about yesterday's events. "So, you've never seen diving before?" Tom asked, spreading out photos of his work on the table between them. "I guess that makes sense, coming from a desert world." Lyra picked up one of the photos, showing Tom surrounded by colorful fish and strange underwater plants. "On my world, even the idea of putting your face in water is—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Terrifying. Our bodies aren't made for it. The pressure hurts our breathing organs." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "But humans evolved alongside water. Our earliest ancestors came from the oceans, actually. Some scientists think that's why human babies can naturally hold their breath underwater." "Babies can what?" Lyra's scales flickered with surprise, a reaction that made Tom lean forward with interest. "Oh yes, and that's just the beginning. With modern diving equipment, we can stay underwater for hours. We've built research stations at the bottom of the ocean, explored deep-sea trenches, even lived underwater for weeks at a time." Lyra's translator took a moment to process all this information. "You're joking. Living underwater? That's impossible." But even as she said it, she remembered how impossible it had seemed to see humans swimming yesterday. Tom pulled out his tablet and showed her videos of underwater habitats, deep-sea exploration vessels, and divers working on ocean floor laboratories. Each image seemed more unbelievable than the last. "This is why we're so excited about the cultural exchange program," Tom explained. "Every species brings unique abilities and perspectives. While we can dive deep into the oceans, your people can survive in deserts that would kill a human in days." "But how do you see down there?" Lyra asked, still struggling to understand. "The water must blur everything." Tom reached into his bag and pulled out a diving mask. "Would you like to look through it? You don't have to put it in water, just hold it up to your eyes." With trembling hands, Lyra took the mask. She held it at arm's length at first, then slowly brought it closer to her face. The glass was clear and smooth. "Our eyes aren't so different from yours," Tom explained. "We just needed to solve the problem of seeing clearly through water. The mask creates an air pocket in front of our eyes, and the glass helps everything stay in focus. And you can breathe down there too." Tom showed her a small oxygen tank and regulator. "This converts the high-pressure air into something we can breathe easily. It's not too different from your environmental suit, just adapted for underwater use." Lyra sat back, feeling overwhelmed but fascinated. "On my world, we dream of finding new water sources deep underground. We send probes and drilling machines. But you just put on these devices and go look for yourselves." "Would you like to see it up close?" Tom asked gently. "We have a research submarine, a completely dry vessel that can take you underwater while keeping you safe inside. You could watch divers work without getting wet yourself." Lyra's first instinct was to refuse immediately, but something about Tom's enthusiasm and the incredible images she'd seen made her hesitate. Would it be completely safe? No chance of water getting in. "Absolutely safe. The submarine is tested regularly, and you'd be with experienced pilots. Think of it as a small spaceship, just underwater instead of in space." Looking at another photo of the underwater world with its strange beauty and impossible colors, Lyra made her decision. "I would like to try. My people need to know about this. It could change how we think about water worlds entirely." Tom's face lit up. "Fantastic. I'll make all the arrangements. Trust me, Lyra, you're going to see things you never imagined possible." As she left the meeting, Lyra realized she was both terrified and excited about what she had agreed to do. She had come to Earth to study farming, But she was about to learn something far more extraordinary about humans and their relationship with water. Over the next few days, Lyra spent hours in the research center's library, reading everything she could find about human underwater activities. She learned about ancient pearl divers who could hold their breath for minutes at a time, modern submarines that could stay underwater for months, and underwater hotels where humans went for vacation, a concept that still made her scales tingle with disbelief. Tom often joined her, answering her endless questions and showing her more videos of underwater exploration. In return, she told him about her people's incredible adaptations to desert life. "Watch this," Lyra said one afternoon, removing a small panel from her environmental suit's arm. Her scales shifted, creating tiny patterns that caught the light. Our scales can extract moisture from air that humans would consider completely dry. We developed this ability over thousands of generations. Tom leaned closer, fascinated. "That's amazing. How much water can you collect this way?" "On a good day, enough to fill this." She held up a small vial, just from the air around us. "We can also slow our body functions to use almost no water for days at a time. Our ancestors survived terrible droughts this way." "That's just as incredible as diving," Tom said, making notes on his tablet. "Humans would die without water for just a few days. We've invented all sorts of technology to find and purify water, but we never evolved the ability to extract it from dry air." Lyra moved to the computer screen, pulling up an image of what humans called a submarine city. The underwater research station looked like something from her people's science fiction stories, and humans built these just to study the ocean. "Not just to study it," Tom explained. "We harvest food from the sea, mine valuable minerals, conduct scientific research, and sometimes people live there just because they want to experience life underwater. The ocean covers most of our planet. It would be wasteful not to use it." The concept of having so much water that people could live in it for fun still boggled Lyra's mind. On her world, they had to drill kilometers deep just to find enough water to support their cities. "Tell me more about your water-finding technology," Tom said. "Those deep drilling machines sound fascinating." Lyra brought up a diagram on her own tablet, showing the complex machines her people use to locate and extract water from deep underground. "We can detect tiny water deposits through kilometers of rock. The drills use sonic vibrations to prevent collapse, and every drop is filtered and recycled. Nothing is wasted." "That's brilliant engineering," Tom said. "You know, some of those detection methods might work really well for finding underwater springs and studying ocean currents. Would your people be interested in adapting the technology for underwater use?" Lyra paused, realizing the potential. "And your diving technology? If we modified it to handle high pressure, it could help us explore our deeper water deposits without risking cave-ins." They spent the rest of the afternoon exchanging ideas, finding surprising connections between their different technologies. Tom showed her plans for underwater farming systems that used minimal resources, while Lyra explained how her people created sealed environments to prevent water loss. "It's funny," Lyra said as they wrapped up their discussion. "Our worlds are so different, but we've both had to develop clever solutions to survive. You made technology to go into water. We made technology to find and preserve it." "That's what I love about this cultural exchange," Tom replied. "Everyone assumes that different species would have nothing in common, but we all face challenges. We just solve them differently." Later that evening, as Lyra prepared her daily report for her homeworld, she found herself writing about more than just agricultural techniques. She described the incredible human ability to explore underwater environments, their technology that turned the seemingly impossible into routine, and most importantly, how their different approaches to water could benefit both species. She attached videos of the underwater research stations and diving operations, knowing they would shock her people just as much as they had shocked her. But she also included her conversations with Tom about combining their technologies. Perhaps the biggest discovery of her mission wouldn't be about farming at all, but about how two very different species could learn from each other's relationship with water. The morning of Lyra's submarine expedition arrived with perfect weather. The ocean was calm, its surface gleaming like polished glass under the rising sun. She stood at the dock, staring at the research submarine. The vessel was smaller than she had imagined, painted bright yellow with large viewing windows along its sides. Tom walked up beside her, carrying some equipment. "How are you feeling? We can postpone if you're not ready." Lyra straightened her shoulders, her scales shifting nervously. "No, I want to do this. My people need to understand what humans can do underwater. It might change everything about how we approach water worlds." The submarine's pilot, an experienced woman named Anna, helped them board. Inside, the vessel was dry and clean, with comfortable seats facing the viewing windows. Lyra's environmental suit sensors confirmed the air was safe, though she kept her suit on for comfort. "We'll dive to about 30 meters today," Anna explained as she started the engines. "That's where the research team is working on the artificial reef project. The pressure at that depth is completely safe for the submarine." As they began to descend, Lyra gripped her seat tightly. The water rose past the windows, and for a moment, her heart beat so fast she thought they might burst. But then she saw the view, and everything else faded away. The underwater world was nothing like she had imagined. Beams of sunlight cut through the water like golden spears, creating shifting patterns on everything they touched. Schools of fish moved in perfect synchronization, their scales catching the light. The water wasn't the threatening force she had always imagined. It was alive with color and movement. "Look there," Tom pointed through the window. "Those are the divers starting their work." Lyra watched in amazement as human figures moved through the water with graceful ease. They carried tools and equipment, working on what looked like a structure made of interconnected blocks on the seafloor. "What are they building?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's an artificial reef," Tom explained. "We create these structures to help marine life thrive. Fish make their homes here. Coral grows on the surfaces, and it helps rebuild damaged ocean ecosystems." One of the divers swam right up to their window and waved. Lyra waved back, still amazed at how comfortable the human looked underwater. Through the clear water, she could see the diver's face behind their mask, smiling and completely at ease. The diver's breathing equipment, Lyra noted, watching bubbles rise from their gear. "It's so much smaller than I expected. How does it work in the pressure?" Tom explained the technology, while Anna carefully maneuvered the submarine around the worksite. Lyra learned about air tanks, pressure regulators, and how human bodies could adapt to different depths. It seemed impossible that such simple-looking equipment could keep humans alive underwater, yet there they were, working as comfortably as she would on dry land. "Would you like to see something really special?" Anna asked after they had watched the divers work for a while. At Lyra's nod, she guided the submarine slightly deeper. They came upon a large school of fish, thousands of them moving as one silver cloud through the water. The sight made Lyra gasp. On her world, seeing so many living things in one place was unheard of. The desert simply couldn't support such abundance. "This is why we dive," Tom said softly, watching her reaction. "There's a whole world down here that we'd never understand if we couldn't see it for ourselves." As they continued their underwater tour, Lyra used her tablet to record everything. She documented the divers at work, the marine life, and the incredible visibility through the clear water. Each image would challenge her people's understanding of what was possible. When they finally surfaced 2 hours later, Lyra felt change. She had seen humans do something she had thought impossible, working in an environment her species considered hostile. More than that, she had seen the beauty in it. "Thank you," she said to Tom as they stepped back onto dry land. "I understand now why humans dive. It's not just about what you can do underwater. It's about discovering a whole new world." Lyra sat in her quarters late into the night, carefully composing her official report to the Sunscape High Council. Her experience in the submarine had given her so much to share, but she knew she had to present it carefully. Her people's fear of abundant water ran deep in their culture. She started with the videos she had recorded, showing the divers at work on the artificial reef. Then she added detailed technical specifications of human diving equipment, focusing on how it could be modified for exploring Sunscape's deep water deposits. The similarities between diving gear and their own environmental suits would help her people understand the concept. Members of the High Council, she began her written report. What I am about to share will challenge our understanding of water-rich worlds and the species that inhabit them. Humans have not just adapted to living near vast bodies of water. They have mastered the ability to work and study beneath it. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen as she described everything she had learned. She explained how humans use diving technology to farm the oceans, study marine life, and build underwater structures. She included Tom's suggestions about combining their water detection technology with human diving equipment. As she worked, her communication panel lit up with an incoming call from Sunscape. The concerned face of Council member Dax appeared on the screen. "Young Lyra," he said, his scales showing the formal pattern of official business. "We have received your preliminary reports about human underwater activities. The Council is disturbed by some of your claims. Are you certain these recordings haven't been altered?" Lyra sat straighter in her chair. "Council member, I have seen it with my own eyes. I was in a vessel underwater, watching humans work in the ocean depths. Their technology is different from ours, but it is very real." She sent him new footage from her submarine trip, showing the divers up close. "Look at how they move through the water, how they work with their tools. This isn't just survival. They have made the underwater environment their own." Dax's scales shifted in amazement as he watched. But the pressure, the hostile environment. "They solved those problems long ago," Lyra explained. "Humans have special suits and breathing equipment that let them work underwater for hours. They've built entire research stations on the ocean floor. And Council member, they believe their technology could help us better explore our own deep water deposits." The Council member was quiet for a long moment, studying the images. "This changes everything we thought we knew about water worlds. Our scientists always assumed that too much surface water made a planet unsuitable for advanced civilization. But these humans, they don't just survive here," Lyra said excitedly. "They thrive. They farm the oceans, build in them, study them, and they're willing to share their knowledge with us." She sent him the technical specifications she had prepared. "Their diving technology could revolutionize how we explore our deep aquifers. No more relying solely on probes and drilling machines. We could send our own people down to study the water deposits directly." Dax's scales showed the pattern of deep thought. "The Council will need to discuss this at length. This could change our entire approach to water world exploration." Other Council members are already calling for a full scientific exchange program with Earth. "There's more," Lyra added. "The humans are fascinated by our water preservation technology. They want to learn how we extract moisture from dry air and manage our water recycling systems. This could be the beginning of a valuable partnership." When the call ended, Lyra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Her people's view of water worlds was changing, just as her own had. The initial shock and disbelief were giving way to curiosity and possibility. She added a final section to her report, writing about the beauty she had seen underwater. The schools of fish, the patterns of sunlight through the water, the graceful movements of the divers. Her people needed to understand that water wasn't just a precious resource to be feared and carefully managed. In the right hands, with the right technology, it could open up whole new worlds of discovery. 6 months had passed since Lyra's first submarine trip, and the observation deck of the newly built Sunscape Earth Joint Underwater Research Station buzzed with excitement. Through its reinforced windows, both humans and Sunscape scientists watched divers working on the latest underwater project. Lyra stood next to Tom, both of them wearing pins that marked them as the station's co-directors. Her environmental suit now featured modifications based on human diving technology, allowing her to safely observe underwater operations up close without actually getting wet. "Remember when you thought humans couldn't dive? Tom teased, pointing to a team of human and sunscape engineers testing new underwater drilling equipment. Remember when you thought desert people couldn't help improve ocean technology? Lyra replied, her scales showing the pattern of friendly humor she had learned from spending so much time with humans. The drilling machine they were watching was a perfect example of their cooperation. It combined Sunscape's sensitive water detection systems with human underwater construction methods. Early tests showed it could locate underwater springs and mineral deposits with twice the accuracy of previous methods. A group of Sunscape scientists huddled near another window, recording data as human divers demonstrated new underwater construction techniques. Their initial fear of water had gradually turned into cautious fascination. While they couldn't dive themselves, they had learned to appreciate what humans could accomplish underwater. The council sent another message this morning. Lyra told Tom as they walked through the station's corridors. They've approved the expansion of the exchange program. 10 more Sunscape scientists will be arriving next month to study human marine technology. That's great news, Tom said. And what about the water recycling project? Lyra's scales rippled with pride. Your engineers said our water preservation systems are helping them design better life support systems for underwater habitats. They think it could double the time people can spend in deep-sea stations. They reached the station's main research lab, where teams from both worlds worked side by side. Humans learned about Sunscape's advanced moisture extraction and water purification methods, while Sunscape scientists studied human diving equipment and underwater construction techniques. On one screen, they could see live footage from a deep-water expedition near Sunscape. Human divers were helping to explore previously inaccessible underground water caverns, using modified diving gear designed for the extreme conditions. The information they gathered would help Lyra's people better manage their precious water resources. Did you ever imagine this would happen? Tom asked, gesturing at the busy lab. When you first arrived on Earth, did you think our peoples would be working together like this? Lyra shook her head. I came to study Earth's farming methods. Instead, I discovered that what we thought was our greatest difference, our relationship with water, could become our strongest connection. An alarm chimed softly, reminding them of the afternoon schedule. They headed to the communications center for their daily conference with both Earth's Marine Research Council and the Sunscape High Council. As they walked, they passed the station's newest addition, a training area where Sunscape engineers learned to operate underwater drones. While they couldn't dive themselves, these remote vehicles allowed them to actively participate in underwater exploration. Next week, we start testing the new underwater habitat designs, Tom said, pulling up the schedule on his tablet. Your people's atmospheric regulation technology made them twice as efficient. And the moisture farming systems we're building on Earth are working better than expected, Lyra added. The desert reclamation project is ahead of schedule. They reached the communications center just as the connection with both councils was established. The screen showed human and Sunscape leaders sitting side by side, ready to hear the latest updates from the research station. As Lyra began her presentation, she caught her reflection in one of the dark screens. Her scales showed the pattern of contentment, a rare sight among her usually cautious people. She had come to Earth thinking she would learn about farming, but she had helped build something far more important, a bridge between two worlds that once thought they were too different to understand each other. The research station itself was proof that the greatest discoveries often came from the most unexpected places. It took an alien's shock at human diving to reveal how two very different species could learn from each other, turning their differences into strengths and their fears into opportunities for growth.